My friends were like, have you read this book, Verity? It feels like you should be in it. And I was like, I need to know what's behind this. And then I started reading it. I was like, this is a psycho woman and I hate all of you.
Hey, Allison, welcome to One Nightstand.
Hey, thank you for having me.
Were you a big reader growing up?
Huge.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know the answer. I mean, my tastes are in some ways like frozen in life when I had more time to read or gave more of my time to reading. Huge reader. Like, around when like you had to develop the arts of social interactions with other children, specifically like girl groups, I was like, it's a pass for me. I'm just gonna go read Boxcar Children in my bedroom.
So like, did you have books at like at lunch? Were you like reading instead?
Great question about lunch. I'm sure I did at some points. I'm sure I did.
I just think I'm like going back to core memories.
To your own.
Yeah, of teachers being like, you should like know, like you have to like
stop reading. Put the book down.
Like go eat grilled cheese with someone. You should have friends in kindergarten.
Yeah, I know. I relate to that deeply. I learned how to read early, and then I just was like, oh, that's it. Like, I'm just going to do this all the time. And it started with like Louis Sachar and, you know, and then the first like serious book I felt like I read was like The Giver or Where the Red Fern Grows, like where I still remember the word gurgle in such a gross context where he got stabbed with an axe. I like vividly remember that description. I was like, whoa, this is capital T trauma I'm reading about. This is a big deal. Mm-hmm. Those books like leave such an indelible mark. And then if you get the message that you can then just do it on your own and follow your interests reading wise, then sky's the limit. Book Fair Day was like the biggest day of the year.
Oh my God.
On my calendar.
Huge. Like the
Huge day.
Poring over the little things.
Oh
and
my
like,
God. I'm getting like
I know.
itchy talking about it. It evokes something that bookstores don't even. And I love a bookstore. I love the way they smell. I love the way it feels in there. But a Scholastic book fair in your school gym hits different.
It's different.
Does.
Yeah. I wonder if Scholastic should do like a pop-up of that. I wonder if that's like a thing.
If it would feel nostalgic.
Yeah, well, or just like even tapping into. I mean, I don't know that like an activation would hit in the same way. But also
for like my first year, you're so young. Money is still like a concept. So there's that part too. You're not like at all concerned with how commercialized this whole thing is. Or if I walked into one now and saw my son in that context, I'd probably be like, this is all gross. Like I hate that it's, who knows, like maybe they were divided by like publisher or something. And I just had I just was like,
you were pure.
Everyone bought the Guinness Book of World Records always.
Really?
To look at the pictures. Yeah, that was the most popular at our school. It sold out immediately. But then I was like, yeah, I loved it. Like, I don't know, I'm just so into it.
And then you went on to be an English major.
And I know that you were also an English major.
I very much was, with a concentration in creative writing, though.
Interesting.
So I didn't. Yeah, I didn't write a thesis. But I'm curious. Did you? What was yours?
I did.
Yeah.
So I wrote a thesis on, I went to Yale, which I mentioned only because my thesis is specific to the Yale thing. There's no undouchey way to say that, especially in this context. But at Yale, there's a place called the Beinecke Rare Book Library where they have this incredible collection of rare books, including a Gutenberg Bible. And one of the things they have there is an extra annotated, illustrated edition of Uncle Tom's Cabin.
Oh, wow.
And I always was very like, we'll get to it with Homegoing, but I've always been like obsessed with consuming literature from just every perspective of civil rights and slavery and I don't know, just like the whole spectrum. And so Uncle Tom's Cabin, I thought was, when I finally did read it, I was like very underwhelmed by it and kind of intrigued by it as a phenomenon. But then we went with our professor to the Beinecke to look at stuff, and somehow I came across this edition of Uncle Tom's Cabin. And so my thesis was kind of like analyzing both Uncle Tom's Cabin in its context and then also analyzing these illustrations that were so gorgeous in the like on the title page, in the margins of the book, beautiful illustrations with no credit for the artist.
Oh, so it's still
just
unknown.
A mystery. And so my thesis was that this artist, whoever they were, was, or maybe they signed it, but it wasn't specific enough. And my thesis was that this was a Black artist based on the tone of the illustrations, based on the context within Uncle Tom's Cabin and the historical context of the illustrations.
This is actually a fascinating, like usually you ask somebody what their thesis is and it's like not interesting at all.
You know
like
what? At
solving
that point,
a literary mystery.
That's how it felt. Like honestly, at that point I was like, I'm so sick of like talking about, I don't know, like Women in Faulkner. I'm just not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. I don't have it in me. I've been writing those essays for 4 years now. I need like a primary source. It was so nice to be able to like go work on my thesis, put on the gloves, handle the book, look at the illustrations. Like,
have you ever read the book We Keep the Dead Close by Becky Cooper? Have you heard about
but Becky
this?
Cooper sounds familiar.
She went to Harvard, and there had been this mystery. I'm gonna butcher some of this.
I have nothing to compare it to.
No,
so
but I just think
rewrite it right now.
Like, I just think you would like it. There was a murder. A woman was murdered, I believe, who was in the archaeology graduate program during her time.
Sorry, I love archaeology. I hate murder.
Thank you for clarifying.
Big archaeology dork. Murder, thumbs down. You heard it from me. I'm not a fan of murder. I don't think it's good.
Really, thank you so much for the clarification.
Wanted to clarify. In today's media climate,
in this clickbait,
you can never be too safe. Don't get me started on that topic. I have things to say.
Oh, so anyway, she goes back and like explores the history of Harvard and like the culture of it, but also like the ways that they like. I don't think they necessarily covered up the murder by any means, but it just was like there's something very like investigative of the school and primary source oriented that is obviously quite different than your thesis. But I feel like, I don't know, I think you would enjoy it.
Set against basically the backdrop of an Ivy League school, a person on a mission to discover more about something that is physically there. Yeah.
Thank you for
you're welcome
for streamlining that tether for me.
Whenever people use that like joke format of like in this essay I will, I'm like, I get the joke format, but it's too close. Like it's just it was my life for so long. Real talk, did you read every page of your reading in college?
No. Did you?
No. But this is the first time I've ever admitted it like publicly. I feel naughty admitting that. It was it would have been literally impossible.
Yeah, also, like, English is a major you can bullshit a bit. Like, you know, like, you just got to be good at talking.
To a certain point, but then if you're also, like, an overachieving English major, then suddenly you're in seminars with grad students, and you're like, well, I got to up my game. And then I was like, do I learn German? Because you all know these obscure, they would sit there and be like, there's a word... I only know this word in German. There's no way to translate it into English to describe the feeling I feel when I read this chapter. And then it's some like 20-syllable long word that is so specifically a reference to the feeling of this chapter or whatever. And I was like, God, I'm out of my league here. I just speak my one language, a little French, no German at that point.
There were certain classes where I was like, I have to read every single page multiple times. Mm-hmm. I remember this one class in particular. I took a history of poetry class with Claudia Rankin, the poet. And it was actually
amazing.
It was the year she won the National Book Award for Citizen.
Whoa.
Now I'm just bragging, but
That's very cool.
It was amazing. And that
history of poetry, Jesus.
She was so tough. It was such a hard class.
But honestly, think how much more you know in theory, although recall is hard for all of us.
Recall is really hard.
Think about how much more you learned in that class. Like I felt that way about I took a couple classes that really stand out. I mean, romantic poetry was like a big deal to me because at that point I thought I didn't like romantic poetry. Like as a huge category, I sort of blanket was like, this is inaccessible to me. I'm not into it. And then after one semester of this class, I was like, oh my God, the albatross, this is real. This stuff matters to me now. Age of innocence, age of experience, it was good.
It can be so transformative, just having the right teacher, the right setting.
Totally. And then also learning that you're wrong about yourself is like something that's really helpful to know as well. Like making declarative statements about what you think you like is so stupid.
Okay, well then I was going to start with the Phantom Tollbooth, but I think then we should start with the Odyssey by Homer because
I'm so excited. I'm like, my instinct just then was like, oh my God, I'm so excited to talk about the Odyssey. And like, I picked the books, so of course I'm excited to talk about them.
Which I haven't read in full since high school when I took an epic poetry English elective. And
really cool that you had an epic poetry English elective in high school.
I was bored out of my mind.
You were?
I mean, I don't know. But so yes, basically.
Did you read Canterbury? No, that would have been epic poetry.
No, it was really, I mean, the Odyssey and the Iliad was pretty much what we read, like exclusively. I mean, it was one semester of high school. But I mean, maybe I wasn't the right age for it, and maybe it was just high school and I was distracted. But basically, prove me wrong. Like, tell me, yes. What is it about the Odyssey?
So when I was asked to come up with 4 books, the way I kind of looked at it is I was like, I'm lucky I've read incredible books over my lifetime, like so many that I really, really love. But in terms of like the Roman empires of my books, like the books that come to mind each day, where like with my husband, for example, I have to like reach for a different analogy because I use it too often. These are the books that like occupy a lot of space in my mind. And what's interesting about Homegoing is that it has a big life in me, and I had to start rereading it for this podcast to like refresh my memory of the specifics of it, because I haven't read it as many times as I've read these other books, but it like has a big life in me. Like that book is incredible. The Odyssey is just, first of all, I think I can't talk about it without the context of like when I learned about it.
Yeah, I was going to ask when you read it for the first time.
So I didn't read the actual Odyssey, like the translated Homer's Odyssey, until later, but I was introduced to Greek mythology, the story of the Odyssey, Odysseus, his journey, a lot of the ideas, epithets, etc. in 4th grade. And it was an entire semester of the school year. The Greek mythology was an entire semester.
That's more impressive than me having this class in high school. Like, you know, like the Odyssey being like your 4th grade curriculum.
Yeah. Greek mythology is sexy and interesting. It's like naughty. I mean, a lot of weird shit is happening, but it's really interesting, and it gives you, I don't know how you would understand a whole chunk of literature without having a background. Yeah. And like Circe is one of my other favorite books that has been written in the last, I don't know, long time, which I thought about adding into this list when I was like, this is pretty redundant. But you can enjoy it on its own. Obviously, it's a great book, but without the context of this, it gets even more full as a result of that. So I read it then, and I fell in love with the idea of these gods, this polytheism, like the thin like veil between like Olympus and the gods and humans, and then the underworld. I was just so into all of it. And it's not that far from when Hercules the movie came out. Right, so it was like, you know, the animated movie, I was like, oh my God, the Titans, I know who everyone's talking about. This is amazing. And then a world, like something as grounded and evergreen, sadly, as warfare, set against the backdrop of mythology where they're intersecting. And then also this like journey, which is something we reference as a culture on most days of our lives. Like the stuff in the Odyssey is like the beginning of it. It's sort of like the Bible to me, or like Beowulf. It's sort of like where you gotta start from in some ways. And as I've gotten older and I've read it multiple times, I don't know how you didn't have to read it a bunch of times throughout school, because I feel like I read it at least 3 times in school.
I just think, I went to the Claremont colleges, I went to Pitzer, I took most of my English classes at Pomona, but like it just was like hippy dippy liberal California,
you got to choose.
Where like there just wasn't, we didn't have, like, it just, yeah, there was less the Odyssey. I definitely read like a lot of the classics, and I took a lot of I have a lot more British lit. Like, yeah. I feel like I did a lot of Victorian and British lit in college. Yeah. But you're right, it's absolutely foundational.
Yeah, I felt almost silly. I felt both silly and kind of like pedestrian, and also like pretentious picking it. It was a weird feeling. I was like, I'm just gonna do it because my gut is telling me to do it. But I was like, it falls like a thud into this list. Like, it's just not only is it substantial as a book, but it's also, I don't know, it's not everyone's cup of tea. It's a guy going home. It's not interesting to everybody, but some people there are a lot of people who vastly prefer the Iliad, and I understand like the preference for that, but I don't know. I literally use the idea of like tying myself to the mast to try to avoid the sirens like weekly. That image is so powerful to me. The Cyclops, like all of them going home, like with Penelope in the house and the whole thing. I just like, I think about it all kind of constantly, which is so strange.
I read Circe for the first time this year.
What did you think?
I thought it was really beautiful.
Yeah, it's incredibly
I thought it was really, really beautiful. And I just, the prose was just like, I was so striking and so evocative. We were talking about performative reading a little bit, like every film broke reading the Odyssey in the lead up to Christopher Nolan's movie coming out. I feel like we're about to see a lot of like the Odyssey on the subway.
I honestly, like when I heard that it was happening, I was like overwhelmed with jealousy that I wasn't in it, and also like a little bit hesitant about, like when I was growing up, Belle from Beauty and the Beast was my idol. She's like a book nerd. I'm sure she was. Yeah. That was like I used to bump into stuff just like she did, and I was like, "This is what cool means." And then the world was like, "You're wrong." But the thing about the Odyssey is like it's crystallized where it belongs in my memory and in my like cultural like everything, and that's going to change now. And I get to decide, at least it's a consent-based medium film. I get to decide if I want to do that or not. And now sitting here promoting a book adaptation, I like fully am so sympathetic to the perils of adapting a book for that reason. Like I'm very protective of the Odysseus in my mind, like of the Telemachus in my mind, of Penelope, like all of them. I just have really clear images of all of them, and I don't know. We'll see.
Will you abstain from seeing certain adaptations if you feel too close to it?
I didn't see Beauty and the Beast, which is weird because it's an adaptation of, well, I'm most familiar with the Disney movie, like the animated movie, but I was like the live action one I
actually didn't see it either.
Yeah, I was like, I need to just be able to picture Belle, like my Belle. But other than that, I don't think I ever have, because I have my other perspective on it, which is from the filmmaking side. As you are experiencing, the process of adapting something from one form to another is lengthy, painstaking. There are so many points along the way where you should stop, where it gets too hard. I have been working on the rights to a book for so many years that we're all just friends now, like waiting for the right time to take this thing out to the market, because it's not like the most, I don't know, headline-y, spicy, plot-driven thing. It's like personal essays.
Can you tease what it is? Or
I think I can. It's The Empathy Exams by Leslie Jamison.
Amazing.
One of my favorite books ever. I thought about adding this, but then I was like, I'm going to eventually talk about this all the time.
I read that while I was working on my book. I really revisited that quite a bit.
You want to know a crazy story about that book?
I would love to.
So I was reading Empathy Exams back when it came out, and I was like, this person went to my college, was in the English department, and I was like, this is so resonant for me. We struggle with so many of the same things. I kind of want to adapt this book, but I don't know. I've never done this before. We were shooting Girls at the time. I was like, this is not something I know how to do. I get into work that morning. Lena sits down in the hair and makeup chair next to me, and she's like, I'm reading this book you should get the rights to. And it was Empathy Exams. Crazy. So I did. I reached out to Leslie. She's now been a friend of like a decade, and we've been just steadily, we have it kind of ready to go for when we feel like the world is going to be ready to accept a sort of like contemplative first person.
Are you writing the script?
No, we have a writer attached, Tristan Schuyler, who's amazing, who is going to be writing the adaptation when we get that opportunity, but we're just waiting our turn. It doesn't feel like the vibe is right now, but we all just get to hang out and be friends in the meantime.
Yeah, like timing is so important with these things, but that's really amazing.
Isn't that a weird story? And Making and Regretting You, like the people who do it, we know, like we've also watched adaptations that didn't work. Like we know the same things everybody else knows, and we also love this book and these characters in this story, and so we're going to take as good care of it as we possibly can. That's not to say it always goes right, but I don't know. A part of me is always like, it would have not worked already at some point. I mean, so many things don't ever get made for that reason.
That does make me want to segue into talking about Frankenstein, which...
Wait, we're done with the Odyssey before already?
We have a lot of ground to cover.
Okay, let's keep going.
We can go back to the Odyssey.
I just miss school, honestly. Just visit.
I want to talk about your love for it, but I am... You know, it's interesting. It was I hadn't read it in a while, and now with the Guillermo del Toro version coming out,
I know that's weird that I picked two books that are currently like on the verge of existing.
I made that joke in my head, but then like I was like, oh, like, you know, like I was like thinking about it. I was like, that's so funny because they're both so in the zeitgeist right now. But you truly love these books so much.
Yes, at least I'm on the record as loving these books. Like I've been talking about Frankenstein for so long. When I think I read Frankenstein for the first time in high school. It didn't really like make an impression on me. I read it again my freshman year of college. And when I honestly, like, what I love about the book is sort of twofold. One is the book, and the other one is the circumstances of the book, which are insane.
Unbelievable.
13 or something, Mary Shelley?
She was, teenager, 16? And just like a long weekend.
A long weekend where
Lord
they did
Byron's
a competition
house.
at Lord Byron's literal house. It's the coolest
thing I've ever heard in my entire life.
Competition for scary stories. And she came up with this idea then, and then just like ran with it, fully wrote a book as a young teenager, and it's Frankenstein. And one of the things that I love about the book, which you've heard me talk about, I'm sure if I've talked about it before, is the framing of it, because it insulates her. I think it was very smart as a young author, which she was, as surrounded as she was with brilliant literary minds. for your first at bat, I think it's a smart idea to be like, well, this is what I was told by someone who heard about this. Mm-hmm. So,
it's a very
take it or leave
device.
it. I think it's really smart. But she didn't need it. I wish I could be like, trust yourself, girl. Like you can just write this story. you can have a reliable narrator here, or at least one fewer barrier between it. But it's another one I think about all the time. Like whenever I think about fire imagery in literature, and again rereading Homegoing, I was reminded of how beautifully fire is woven through that book. I think about like, attraction and humanity and humility, and just there's endless stuff to talk about with Frankenstein. I literally cannot wrap my head around the person it came out of.
And you reread it about once a year.
Yeah.
Is there like a certain time of year whenever the mood strikes you, or
it's usually whenever it like pops into my head enough times. And also, I don't know if you're like, I assume you're like this. I have my one rinky dink like old edition of it I have highlighted to high heavens, and it has tears in the pages. And so I'll look at it and kind of need to go touch it and read it and open it. And I don't always read the whole thing. And especially now that I have a toddler, we're doing a lot of other reading. But yeah, I just like to get hands on it, get eyes on Frankenstein every once in a while.
Do you feel like you come away with something new every time?
For sure. First time I read it, I'd never been in love. I had never experienced like that sense of longing for a person. I didn't know what it meant to observe that in someone, in a life partner, and be jealous of it yourself. Like, whereas then later in life, as people are starting to get into relationships or different kinds of relationships, like that comparison, it just hits different later in life. It hits different every single time, obviously.
It gutted me.
Yeah.
Yesterday, I said I was listening to it yesterday, and I was at the, it's the monster, and he's watching them in the house, and he so badly wants it, and
it's devastating.
Holy shit.
How did she put that in there? I mean, you're just like devastated for him, and you kind of know because you know where it starts a little bit, you kind of know what he's going to do with that devastation and what he's done with it in the past. And he has nothing but sympathy, like truly, which is crazy.
It is just, I just can't underscore enough like how just like wrecked I was listening to it yesterday. It's so profoundly just tragic. I mean, yeah. And
I think about it too, honestly, talking about the Megan movies, I found myself thinking about it all the time.
Well, I was going to ask you if you have a favorite either adaptation or inspired by, but then I was like, of course it's Megan.
Yeah. It really feels like, for the obvious reasons, but also like when we were thinking about Megan's arc in the second movie in particular, I ended up thinking about it even more than the first movie, because I was relating more to like Dr. Frankenstein, I guess, when we made the first movie, then the monster. But then the second movie, especially as a producer, you're thinking about like, okay, the monster's here, now what? And I felt very culpable as the Dr. Frankenstein of that situation, and responsible. And I think she was like similarly reckless. And I don't know. I mean, I think like we live in a world filled with Frankenstein's monsters like all around us in various forms. Some of them are just code, and some of them are real. And I think it's always good to think really, really carefully about things you bring into existence, because once they're here, they're here. Yeah.
I'm like reckoning with that in real time. I'm just like thinking about so many different things.
I know.
I am really excited. I haven't watched the adaptation yet, the Guillermo del Toro one. I'm really excited for it, but I kept thinking that to bring everything back to girls, Adam Driver would have been such a good monster.
That's so true.
He would have been perfect.
That's so true. I will see it. I love Guillermo del Toro. It's like a very exciting thing to imagine his hand on that adaptation. But I also will mourn the end. I mean, we've all seen the renderings of Frankenstein, but like the actual adaptation of this book, I have that house in my mind.
Yeah.
I have like the room where the monster first comes to life in my mind. Like I have it all. And my hope is that I can keep that while also seeing the new one, and they can continue to coexist.
If I were to come today with 4 of my favorites, Wuthering Heights is one of my favorite books. So like that's also, but that's going to be such a different. That's like, it almost feels like it's going to be like the Megan of Wuthering Heights. Like it's going to be so different and outside of it. So I'm not having the same, like I'm excited to see it. I think it's going to just be totally different than anything I envisioned ever. And that's okay. And then it's just going to be really sexy and
hopefully
really hot.
It's a gateway to Wuthering Heights and other books of the era. I mean, I always think that's a win in general.
Totally. Yeah. But yes, big year of Jacob Elordi in the literary adaptation.
In everywhere, honestly. He's everywhere.
Which I'm totally, you know, as much as I would have loved to see Adam do it, I'm okay to watch Jacob do it as well.
Yeah, happy to. do your best monster, Jacob. I'm excited.
Homegoing by Yaa Gyasi. Yeah, so you read it for the first time when it came out.
Yeah, I read it when it came out. I was so excited because I actually had lived in Ghana for a little while when I was in college, and I went to the Cape Coast Castle, and I was so I did a whole course on the civil rights movement and the effects of slavery on the U.S. when I was in 9th grade. And we traveled through the South, through like civil rights landmarks and sort of antebellum landmarks. And it was just striking how many like points of entry we saw, like for the ships and into the harbor and places where people were sold into slavery. And I simultaneously started to become obsessed with the fact that it sounds like a non sequitur, but it's not, about just how HIV and AIDS is something people can live with, but it's just that they don't have access to the medication they need or the information they need about it. And I then was like, I wonder if I can find a organization that's already doing great work around HIV and AIDS stuff in Ghana that I can just go and support and then learn a little bit more about the other side of that port of entry. And I did. I found an NGO called Theater for Change that was amazing. So I went to Accra for a couple of months and I lived there, and I was helping out at the NGO. And then I also was just doing as much soaking up of the atmosphere as possible. And I love it there so much. But I have never been anywhere as haunting as that castle in my life. I don't think I ever will, because I don't think I'll ever be anywhere that was... I mean, I've been in the Tower of London or whatever, but I don't think I'll ever go anywhere that is as like just purely evil as that place. It's where it shows up in the book. It's where they housed people they were then going to sell, who they had already sold into slavery, and they were going to board ships to go to the UK and the US.
I was reading old interviews with the author about it, and she talked about going there and just the smell.
Oh my God, the smell. I can still smell it. Like if I can,
really?
Yes, it's in my like, whatever that sense is, it's so powerful. Like I just have it forever, that smell. It's horrible. And just the minute it's just a horrible place. It just, you feel like, you know, those people who have evil looking faces that match their personalities. Like I won't list them, but there's a lot of them out there. This place just felt the way that it functioned. It just felt like that. It was oppressive. It was really insane. It was really hard to spend time there, and really important also. And it feels I feel like it's something all Americans have to do. Like I think we need to contend with the fact that of what we did, of that original sin. I think it's insane. And I read it came out at a time when I was starting to do a lot of work around criminal justice reform. And what year did it come out? 2016, yeah. So I was just starting to like do work inside prisons with restorative justice and stuff. And so it kind of synthesized a lot of the things that I was like really, really interested in. And I've always been obsessed with the fact that like our criminal justice system is just going to be horrifying until we can contend with the just like, well, obviously racist elements of it, but also the history of that racism is not going to change at all until we really get in there and really examine it. But at the Smithsonian in DC, they have, at the African American Museum of History and Culture, they have, you know, layouts of slave ships and stuff like that are just also eerie to think about in this context, and after having seen the ports from which they departed. It's just, yeah. I
think a lot of people are so afraid to talk about the issues you're speaking about now, and privilege, and like where you can fit into that, despite where you like how you've come up, and like that's just something that you've clearly been reckoning with your whole life and tackling and really wanting to interrogate. And I think people are so afraid to touch that, but you speak about it in such a, like, it's weird to compliment how you talk about it, but like, you know, it's like a really nice. Weird, but I'm saying, I just think like it's very impressive, but it's also very clear that like it's not like this isn't performative at all. It's something that you truly have been since your entire life,
literally
thinking about. And I think there's so many people who haven't been forced to think about privilege and identity and inheritance or any of these things until, you know, much more recently. But like growing up in like Greenwich, Connecticut, like I feel like a lot of people also didn't have to do that. Like what was like the propelling force behind really wanting to interrogate all of these things throughout your life?
A lot of things. First of all, thank you. But second of all, I think there was a lot. I mean, I think one of the things that Yaa Gyasi does so beautifully in this book is the legacy, I mean, literally she traces one family through two different branches of the tree and through time. So you just get to see the legacy of all these original pain and trauma or not, and just see what happens through time to these families and how they're linked. When you do that, when you look like me, it's almost never a happy story. At some point, someone owned a person, and that's so beyond fucked up that it's crazy. And you have two choices. You can either pretend it didn't happen and bury your head in the sand, or interrogate it and try to live a life where you're in some cosmic way trying to reconcile that or, you know, repair it, the reparations idea. In my case, I grew up in a family. I'm not totally sure about all the versions of it, and I'd love to do one of those like Discover Your Roots shows because I want to know.
Do those still exist?
I don't know. I hope so. Maybe I'll just like, I don't know, go. I already am on like all the like ancestry. Maybe I shouldn't announce that here. People are gonna come find me, but so I can't be totally certain. There's a very suspicious amount of land in New Jersey at some point in the family where I'm like, I don't know about that. It could have just been a farm. It could have not been a farm, but I don't know for sure. But either way, like in New Jersey at a certain time, you also took that land from somebody else. So like I would hate these people regardless. But I grew up in a family that was really obsessed with two things. One, civil rights. My grandparents were at the March on Washington. The claim to fame is, though, that my grandmother insisted that they leave early to beat the traffic. So I'm here to tell you that they did not see the I Have a Dream speech, but they were there just moments before.
Did they beat
and
the
Mimi,
traffic?
wherever you are, I love you. That was who you were. They beat the traffic, but they also missed, perhaps other than 20 years ago, maybe like the most famous speech in the English language, and they beat the traffic though.
It's
so if you're wondering, But so I grew up with like, we have the pamphlet from that framed in our house, and we grew up like with a really kind of unsugar-coated, descriptive understanding of the civil rights movement and of slavery, and also of like the massacre of American Indians and all of those things. Like in Connecticut, you're just sort of surrounded by every street name is Native American. And
I'm from Providence.
Oh, you are? Yeah. We grew up going to Block Island. So you're just like going through all of these tiny little towns, and why are they so small? And, you know, the stone walls everywhere. And that was the backdrop, was that my mom's parents, who lived in our hometown, were just really preoccupied with this fight for equality that just was seeming to get, especially towards the end of their lives, like she was just getting more and more upset and more worried. And but they had lived through the movements of the 50s and 60s in the U.S. And then on my dad's side, it was more about the privilege piece and less about like racism in particular and anti-slavery and also like criminal justice reform stuff. That was all about like just understanding, because he came from slightly more humble beginnings than my mom did. I was taught from a young age that, I don't know how to put this without making them sound like they were mean to us, but that we aren't more special than anyone else to have been born into the circumstances we were born into. So we just hit the lottery in some way. And what's weird for him is that he knows that in his lifetime, he transcended the class that he was grown up into, which meant that he was going to be raising the kinds of kids that were like mean to him and the object of his envy when he was growing up. Like he was going to be raising rich kids. And so I think for both of my parents, both knowing how white I am and my brother is, and also like how privileged we were, they were kind of like, these can either be like apex predator monster people, or they can be like really helpful kind of inside people fixing some of the things that are problematic. And they weren't as explicit as that. But that was very much the tone of like, you have to work for shit, but you won't have to work as hard as everybody else. And that's not something you earned. It's not fair, but how amazing. And so be grateful for the opportunity it provides you, but don't you dare for 1 second think, A, that it makes you more special or better than anyone else, and B, don't you dare forget all the people that never get that shot, and make sure that you bring them with you every step of the way, like either just internally in your sense of awareness or like literally like give other people opportunities. I think the reason people struggle with it, like the idea of like nepotism and stuff, is it delegitimizes what they've achieved. And I guess I'm sort of like, I've been so ever since Girls came out, like it's just been so much criticism of whether or not I'm good at what I do, and for a long time the verdict was like, we're all in a documentary and it's not acting, and finally I think people get it. But whatever, I guess I kind of eventually had to throw up my hands and be like, I don't care. I mean, you guys are gonna think what you think, but what I care so much more about is that you guys know that I know that this is not, none of this is fair. I need to make sure that people understand that, because it's not, and it's gaslighting, not to use the world's most overused term, but it's gaslighting to be like, we all, you know, I pulled myself up, what? No. I always talk, like when we talk about the layers of privilege and stuff, and I think this is even in this book a little bit, it's like, there's a safety net, right? So that's the first one. Like there was only so far I was ever going to be able to fall, but that changes the way you live your life in a huge way. Radically. I had a dream of being an actress. Okay, cool. Welcome to the world where like literally everyone has that dream. But I grew up with a dad who wanted to be a nightly news anchor. It's one of 3 jobs that exist in the world. And he decided when he was like 5 that that's the job he wanted. And that's the job he got. Mm-hmm. So I grew up in a house where that's possible. Where not only I grew up around people in the entertainment world, but I had a dad who got a one of 3 job positions from Middletown, New Jersey, who just had a dream of being a news guy. Mm-hmm. And he had no nepotism or anything to help him. He truly did kind of like, other than his whiteness and maleness, which is nothing small, he really did, like, without the connections, get himself there. But from where I was starting, like, that's a very, very different place. And striking out on your career as an actress, with like an apartment that your parents are helping you pay rent for, and like IKEA furniture that they split with me, and their moral support, and they being able to fly out there to help me move in, and like it's never ending. And I don't know why I always reach for him as a comparison, but Barry Keoghan, I think I'm just so like fascinated by his story, like to come through the foster system and just be like the least likely person to then be like Oscar nominated, like incredibly talented, gifted actor. That is someone to like root for. That's someone who's like doing it against the odds. And I totally understand when people are like, you don't need me to root for, do you need me to root for you? I don't think you do. And I'm like, no, I don't. I like my job. I like making stuff to entertain people, make people think. And I'm going to keep doing that for as long as I can. But I also understand that I'm not the underdog. And I don't know. And not every movie, every job is for me to do. I think that's another part of it. Like, I think there's a lot of people in our field who kind of feel entitled to play parts that I don't think they should. And I try to be cautious about the ones that I do play, to be like, I have. So often you'll read something and you're like, I have no business playing this part. Mm-hmm. Someone else would be great in it. It shouldn't be me.
Is there something that you've chosen not to do that you felt like?
Many.
Yeah. But I do think, that is such a beautiful thing to bring it back to Homegoing, and having revisited it. Just the idea that like everything is so by chance, just like, it's the fate of these 2 sisters, where just like every small thing that happens to you in life like just dictates this entire lineage and how things can go. And I just felt like it's just so, and it's
from the very beginning. It's like, it's so, the moral ambiguity I'm obsessed with, like her relationship with her mother, which is abusive, and also she is her abuser and her savior, and also and then her abuser again. And it's like, anyway, it's an incredible book. It's heavy. It's not like,
but that's okay.
It's beautiful. It's
important. I don't need it to be like.
Well, I know. Right? I don't know why I'm like talking. Like you just finished it.
No. I hadn't read it in a really long time, but I just
wasn't it as good as you? I was like, it can't possibly be as good as I remembered it being, and it is as good, if not better, because I'm also, again, from perspective, every time you read a book, it goes down differently.
Yeah, also just like the sheer amount of ground she covers.
It's unreal.
And the ability to write so many characters against so many years and in so many settings.
But so palpably, like these are tangible people.
Yeah,
immediately.
I'm like, how do you do that?
The efficiency. I don't know. I was analyzing it actually, and I think part of it is word choice. Like her vocabulary is stunning. And the way her descriptors are stunning. And that's where the real efficiency in storytelling, I think. I don't know. I think it's also pacing. I can't wait to read like a lifetime of books from her.
Do you ever write?
Yes, but not yet for other people to read. I wrote like voraciously when I was young. My parents got me. First, I was reading. I was a total book addict. I read all day, every day, anytime I could. And then they bought me a word processor, and it was like an early kind of a laptop that wasn't connected to the internet. It just had like the equivalent of Microsoft Word. I don't remember what it was called. And I would just come home from school and sit down and just write and write and write and write and write. And they're hilarious. And I still have some of them, and they're so funny. A lot of them are told from the perspective of a young fisherman on Prince Edward Island. I don't know why. Maybe a past life or something. We went to Prince Edward Island as a family, and we went tuna fishing. That feels relevant. And also we like in that area of like New England, there's Nantucket, and there was a lot of whaling. Like we studied whaling in school for a while too. Whaling is incredible. It's fascinating.
Whaling
and horrifying.
was like my entire early childhood education.
Yeah.
Like we like literally had like the whale project where we all got like assigned a whale.
What was your whale?
I don't remember.
Yeah, we all had to just be cool about sperm whale existing.
Yeah,
as a species, and that was hard for all of us in middle school, and we got through it. Yeah, we literally went to Nantucket on a school trip to study whaling. One of my favorite museums in the world is the Whaling Museum out in Nantucket.
It's really, I mean, I've like privileged girl from New England. I've been to Nantucket many, many times.
Yeah. So I wrote a lot. I don't know. I did a lot of creative writing. I submitted some of them. I finished some of them, but I was bad at like bringing it home. I'm bad at the editing. I'm bad at the completing it. I like just sort of expelling it from my system. Maybe it's like early anxiety processing, undiagnosed anxiety. But yeah, I mean, there's so many stories that are just hysterical. My brother, like in a speech at some point, read a bunch of excerpts that are just like so embarrassing. But yes, I was a really big writer. I've started writing again because I started a podcast with two of my best friends from growing up, with whom I read many of these books, and we started a Substack.
I saw.
So I am already late. I'm like, this is classic. I've never hit a deadline.
Because you don't have. I was reading the Substack, and you haven't posted.
I've been working on my post. Here's the thing. This is a classic. It's going to end up being 2 posts because I'm now on page 5 of Word, of Microsoft Word, and 12 Times New Roman, which I like can't quit. It needs to be size 12 Times New Roman. I can't write in another way. Single space though, that's my like non-college rebellion. It's so long. Like I was like, if I submit it as this, I have to record an audio version of it to give people that option, which I might do. But I love it. I forgot how much I love writing. I really love writing. I don't have as much of a knack for writing screenplays. I always end up writing like a few lines of dialogue and then like pages of scene direction. And I'm like, right, so prose is the thing. Yeah. I think prose is where I belong. But maybe someday. I mean, right now for Substack, it's more of a personal essay kind of format with a little bit of anthropology and paleontology sprinkled in. I'll tease that. I'm going to try to land that plane. It combines the Triceratops with the obstetrical dilemma.
Jesus.
I'm going to do my best. Jesus isn't part of it, but I'll try to add him in there. It's part of everything.
I want a novel from you. That's what I really want. Mm-hmm.
God, oh boy. Well, you've assigned it to me now, which means that in about 10 years, I'll hand it to you or something. 10 years would be kind of fast for a novel, honestly.
I don't disagree.
Yeah, I would love to. I'm sure I thought I would have written a book by now, but I also... part of motherhood that has shocked me, and maybe it's just the particular kid that we got dealt who is so unbelievably curious. It's the best. I've learned more in his like just under 4 years of life about more things than I had in the 5 years like previous to that.
Wow.
And we're learning so much. He reads well, he's not reading yet. We think he actually maybe has like almost figured out how to read, and he's just not doing it yet, which is how he progresses through a couple of stages in his development so far. But we read to him all day. I mean, we're constantly reading to him. We have this thing called a Yoto that has these little cards that are basically audiobooks, but the beauty of the card is that they get to be the boss of the audiobook. So he gets to pick the card out of he has like a I don't know, a card catalog is what I want to say, but that's not our connotation of that. It wouldn't be correct. But then he just picks a card out about, like, right now he's been learning a lot about electricity and light or space, or he's obsessed with childbirth. I'm not pregnant or anything. He's just obsessed with it right now, and he'll just put it in there and listen.
About on the files. Like, he has so many questions with childbirth.
But it's not just that; it's everything. And I'm just so indulgent of that. I will answer any question to the best of my ability. He's into space. He knows more about space than I ever did already, like way more. And anyway, I think his curiosity is so wonderful. And it's like, I just know that the minute this guy knows he can read to himself, we're just not gonna, I'm so excited for him. I'm sad for us because I love reading to him. We both do. But he's just going to feel like he has the entire world at his fingertips, and he will.
He will. That leads me to want to talk about our last book today, The Phantom Tollbooth. I was going to ask, have you read it to him yet?
I started reading it to him when he was like 3.5. It's a tough one. As I started reading it, I realized how much of it is wordplay, and I was like, whatever, as long as I establish a happy association with it now, then later he'll reach for it, hopefully, and he'll want to read it with even more appreciation for the wordplay. But like right when the weather man showed up, who is Whether, I was like, oh yes, I forgot how punny the book is. But the idea of going on an adventure from your bedroom, from where the wild things are, to the Phantom Tollbooth is something that like I really want to foster in a kid in a time when there's so much technology where you don't have to use your imagination to leave your room. It's so much easier than that. Like that little machine I was describing is a shortcut to that. He doesn't have to use his imagination. He just starts listening to a book on tape. I like the idea of him reading books with characters who are using their imaginations to do really, really big things. And the Phantom Tollbooth was really my introduction to like smart writing. It felt like I remember it feeling like an intellectual reach for me the first time I read it. It was a gift from my godfather, Josh Mankiewicz. Shout out to Dateline fans. He's incredible. And I'll never forget that he gave it to me because it was such an important gift. It like informed my sense of humor in some ways, like my sense of loving vocabulary, words, spelling. There's a character, the spelling bee. Yeah, I mean, the illustrations are sort of like just burned in my memory. I love the way the book moves. I love the like moods of the book. I love the characters of the book. It has so many layers. It's never been adapted, I don't think.
I think there was a kind of an unsuccessful adaptation of it. Right. Yeah, I'll have to fact check me.
If it was, I didn't see it. But I've always wondered why, because it feels like it's not quite the same thing, but a series of unfortunate events. I was only in the 3rd season of it, so it feels like I can say this without it being about me, but it was such an incredible series, and it was such a good adaptation of those books. And it feels tonally like it's not completely far from Phantom Tollbooth, and I wonder. We'll see.
How old were you when you were gifted it?
3rd grade, maybe 2nd grade. First grade was like a lot of Boxcar Children and stuff, and then 2nd grade was a lot of Goosebumps. Ooh, that's when I started to get scared when I was reading, and then I got over that really quickly. Like scary stories to tell in the dark. Were you into that?
No, I was such a scaredy cat as a kid.
Me too, but I loved reading scary things.
No, I couldn't handle it. I was really soft as a kid. Like I was truly.
Did Frankenstein scare you a little bit?
I couldn't read Lion Witch in the Wardrobe. I like literally had to watch my mom return it at Barnes and Noble.
Wow, you were like, it can't even be in our house.
Yeah, I was really sensitive.
You know what I did that with? This is very controversial. This might be the most controversial thing I say this whole press tour. The Giving Tree.
Whoa. Okay.
That is not healthy. That is not a healthy mother-son relationship. And I did not want our son to think that I would cut myself down into a stump for his benefit, because I need to put my oxygen mask on first.
Does he have a favorite book?
Right now, it is a book He has a few right now. He's very into this book about, which he's had out from the library for like, and he loves the library. He has a library card. He's so proud of it. It's a book about the Curiosity Mars rover and just the way it was built and when and why and what it's achieved since landing on Mars that he's had out from the library. I feel for whatever like middle schoolers trying to write a paper on it. Although they probably don't use libraries anymore. He's had it out for a long time. He keeps renewing it. There's a book about dinosaurs that he loves. He's very into Phantom Tollbooth. And let's see, audio. Oh, he loves Winnie the Pooh, like the original Winnie the Pooh. But that he's kind of he's sort of at the tail end of that. But that really expanded his vocabulary in a very British and very funny way. He's extremely into Winnie the Pooh. I couldn't believe it. It's not illustrated, and I sat down next to him. He was sick one day, and I just pulled it off the shelf, and I started reading it to him. And we got 45 pages in, and he hadn't budged.
I was just
mesmerized, totally. And I was like, sometimes good writing is just good writing.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Zasha Mamet came on.
The best. I love Zosh.
And I asked her, I was like, I don't think any of the girls really read. Like, you know what
what did she say?
She didn't really remember, but I'm saying like I looked like at like this like Reddit if they like pulled like how many books were actually featured on the show. Like there's not that like
I thought you meant the actor. Sorry, I like immediately was like personally affronted. I was like, how dare she at Tu Brute?
No,
we're big readers.
No.
Oh, the characters.
Like because now it's such a thing to like have
girly with a book.
Yeah, but like.
But that's because someone was smart enough to turn it into an aesthetic. Now, if all those people if all those girlies are actually reading those books, then we're in great shape. It's
great for the publishing industry. Yeah. But other than like We're the Ladies book, like in the pilot, like I don't think there's that many books in girls.
I think you're right, which is so weird knowing Lena, who's a complete bibliophile. She's like obsessed with books. She reads faster than anyone I know. That's the other thing that sucks. Being an English major, I will say the one drawback is that it kind of my tanks for reading got smaller.
Really?
Yeah. It changed it. It was like when when sports became too much about the fitness of it, it like ruined working out for me.
Okay.
Like going into a gym and working out. For reading, I burned out. I read so much in college that I felt like doing it for pleasure took a minute. And I really have to read like books that are not deep. I don't know. It's helpful to reset that.
So what are some of those you read for pleasure?
I feel like I kind of low-key just insulted them, so I don't want to list them. Okay. But it's also not like exclusively that. It's sort of like the cadence has to be light book, meaningful contribution to the Western or Eastern canon of literature at some point. New York Times bestseller right now that 2 or more of my friends told me to read. Light book, you know. That's kind of the cadence.
What would Marnie's favorite book be? I think you've been asked this before.
I've never been asked this.
Really?
No, people are not, you know. People
and
are
then
just forgetting about books.
This and is then I'll tell you what Zasha said.
About Marnie's or about Shosh's?
No, for Shosh.
Marnie's favorite book. The first thing that came to mind so randomly was In Cold Blood, but I have no idea why. It was just tapping into that like inner sociopathy that she has, that like slightly unhinged.
I love that for her.
Honestly, I do too.
I think go with your gut.
Okay, In Cold Blood. What did she say for Shosh?
We were riffing, and that like maybe one morning she like woke up at Ray's, and there was just like a bunch of Russian lit there, and she just like opened up like I forget what the exact book was, and she was like. So cute, like the brothers. Yeah, you know what I mean.
Yes. Hold on. Ugh, come on, brain.
I can find it.
Okay, let it go. It's gonna come to me in the car. So you're gonna yell it into the air.
Yeah, and then she was like, so it's either like that or Sophie Kinsella, just like anything by Sophie Kinsella.
That seems right.
Yeah, and then the last thing we'll hit on is that you are here to chat about a book that you just adapted, Regretting You. So I think, when did you read Colleen Hoover for the first time, and what really resonated with you about it?
I think the first Colleen Hoover I read was Verity, which is so funny because the reason it came to me was many of my friends were like, have you read this book, Verity? It feels like you should be in it. And I was like, I need to know what's behind this. And then I started reading it. I was like, this is a psycho woman, and I hate all of you for having me shoehorned into this idea. But I devoured it. And And it's funny because I almost didn't finish it. And that is a book that if you don't finish it, you walk away with like a fundamental. I went to start shooting a movie while I was reading it. And at the end of a movie, things always get so chaotic. You're like shooting longer days, you're not sleeping. So I fell off of it. And then on my flight home from where was I was like, oh, I need to finish this book, and not to spoil anything, but like a lot changes in the last like couple of chapters of Verity. But that's also an outlier in the Hoover canon. A lot of her books are written, I guess as Verity was as well, but are written from first person perspective and often alternating chapters. So I think one of the things that makes, and I hadn't read Regretting You before I was sent the script, but I then read it immediately when I got the script, and then read it again and excerpts of it many, many times. I think the reason that she resonates, first of all, she just has like a good understanding of plot and story that are like just slightly exaggerated and outsized enough to be departures, to be like slightly expansive from our normal lives, and then characters that are kind of similar, like exaggerated versions of ourselves. And she writes it all so accessibly. But what she's best at, I think, is combining the characters with their decisions in ways that are really, really interesting. And Regretting You is like a great example of kind of passive decision making, being on the receiving end of events that happen. The choices people make from that place are just fascinating. And I think people feel very close to these characters because of the first person thing. You spend a lot of time with their like flawed thoughts, and that'll do it.
Well, thank you so much for being here today. It was such a treat getting to chat with you about all this.
I could talk to you forever, honestly.
I know. We're going to have to pull us off.
Well, thank you for having me. Thank you for doing the show. It's so cool.
So fun.
Books rock.
Books rock.